Hey guys, welcome back with another tutorial, and today we're talking about fur. Again, it's the basics, it's nothing too fancy, too complex. The first thing you want to note whenever you're doing fur is your UV layout. So you want to keep it as even as possible because some of the attributes of fur are like roll, for example, is like you can brush the direction of the fur. That's based on the UV direction. So you're gonna be brushing this way, you're gonna be brushing that way, or you're gonna be brushing 45 degrees, whatever. But it's based on the UV layout. So suppose, just to give you an idea, if I had this rotated, let's say like that, then if I painted this way, I'm actually painting that way. So you're gonna be careful with this, and also you don't want to have overlapping UVs, or you don't want to have things like that, or things that are small. You want to have a as even as possible of a UV layout as possible, because that will really help when it comes to making a UV layout. And that's the reason why I'm using this little box here, or this little plane, because this plane has, as you just saw, it has that nice even UV layout. So to access fur, as you can see, I don't think I have it on here. You need to load a plugin first. So you load the plugin by going to Settings, Preferences, and then going to your plugin manager. And in your plugin manager, just wait for that to load. Move it over here. You'll see it's alphabetically, so there you go, fur. So load it, that will load it, and auto load will load it for the next time I open Maya. So now that that's happening, if I go to the rendering menu, then you'll see fur. And then to attach a fur description, you just go attach fur description new. So there you go. That is a fur description right now. And what's happening is the length of the fur is by default 1 unit. So that's what's happening right now. The scale of this plane is 1 by 1. So of course the fur is 1 by 1, and I'm making it bigger, and the fur is still 1 by 1, but because the plane is bigger, it just looks like the fur is smaller, right? So that's the first thing about fur. Now you see that it looks white, and there's a couple of attributes whenever you work with the fur. Is you got the fur feedback, and you have the actual fur description. The fur feedback is just like the display. It's like what I see here. Like if I want to have less fur, I can just type in a lesser number there, and now I have less fur. It doesn't mean that it's rendering less fur. Alright, let's just go ahead and make a render using, let me go ahead and load my mental array. It renders with Maya software and with mental array, so it's not like there's a big deal. But I'm gonna render it with mental array. So you can see there's a lot of fur there. Although I took these samples down, if I increase it, doesn't mean anything. That's just visual display. Okay, that's what that fur feedback is for. Is for. Okay, so under the fur feedback, you'll see the render stats. By default, the reflections and refractions are off, so you might want to check those on if you need them. But don't get too crazy there, because this will increase render times drastically. And you can also make them visible in transparency. You can make them cast, final gather, or not. So that's something you also want to be careful about. And then if you go to the actual fur description, that's when you have this value called density. Now, if I take that density down to 20, then this is going to render a lot less, because now there's only 20. So of course you now know that density and fur feedback samples have nothing to do with each other. So therefore I'm going to keep this at 5 and 5, or not even 3 and 3. Keep it low for display purposes, unless I want to get a little heavier later. Fur, like paint effects, has an incredible amount of attributes, so I'm not going to go over all of them. But I'll go over the main ones. So you got the density, so that's how many hairs of fur there are. There's a global scale, so it's like a global scale. You know, like if I put 5.5, then everything gets divided by half, and now it's half as tall, it's half as wide, so on and so forth. Keep that at 1 for now. There is this map width and height. That's when you bake attributes. Excuse me. You can bake pretty much any attribute. As you can see, the list is pretty extensive, so I'm not gonna go over all of them. I'm gonna go over the main ones. You got base color, which is the base color. You can see it right there. And you have a tip color, which is the tip color, which you can see right there. There is an ambient color and an ambient color and a specular color. The specular sharpness, the higher it is, the it's kind of like a font, you know. It's like 0 would be a really big highlight, and the bigger that number, the smaller the highlight, if I'm not mistaken. Then there's the length, and that's what we have right now. The length is 1, so if I want to make it really small, I can make the length 0.1, and now it's really small. It's really thick, but it's really small. And that's when we go into the base width and tip width. So if the base width was smaller, then now that base is going to be thinner, and therefore 0.0005, that would be the tip width. So now that's really small, 0.002 and 0.001. There we go. So no, nice and thin. So now that I got nice and thin, I'm actually going to increase my density to 500, 1000, 3000. As you can see, the shorter the hair, the more you need. So I'm actually just going to keep it at 1000 and going to increase the length to 0.3. Let's see if that does it for us, so it looks a little bit more heavy. Yeah. Okay, so let's do 0.1 and forget about it. Let's just go with a high number, 5,000. Although that's not really a high number. A high number is somewhere like 1,000,000 or 2,000,000 or 10,000,000 or 100,000,000. So you can get those numbers. It's just consider the render times. Now we have the length, and we have the base curl and the tip curl. So what I'm going to do here for display purposes, I'm going to increase my samples to 10 and 10. And if you take a look at what the base curl is going to do, is going to curl these guys on their base, like so. And you can see the direction that they're curling in. That's based on the U and V direction, okay? And then the tip curl, get that at 0.5, and then the tip is going to curl the tips. You can also give it a scraggle, which is going to randomize these values a little bit, and you can even change the frequency of the scraggle and the correlation of that scraggle, and so on and so forth. Now if you go to details, you can actually, if you go to like base color, I can give the base color a noise, and then change the amplitude of that noise. So you can give it a little bit of randomness to the values. And again, you can always map anything you want on there. So there you go. So we got a nice interesting rug or something. Now if you want to play a little bit more with this, you can always go into presets, and they got a lot of presets, and you can always replace and you can blend presets, so that's kind of cool and exciting. And let's wait for this render. Let's see how that looks. This has 50,000, so skip that. Maybe it's not a good idea. Let's try it one more time. Let's see. I was a little bit too close, so it takes a little longer to render. almost there. We're halfway through. So just gotta wait for it, just for a little bit. Yeah. As you can see, this is taking a little bit of a while. So, and on top of that, it crashed. Sorry, it's because I'm recording and doing all this at the same time, so it's not gonna happen for me. But however, I do suggest that you experiment with those presets, and you can always open up the notes, and it'll explain what they are changing for each one of those, so that you understand its behavior a little bit better. It's really not that complex. What we just did covers the bulk of it. It's just mainly having a good UV layout. If you have a good UV layout, you can, you can do a little bit more with it. You can always paint for attributes, and just go into the option box and you can paint direction, length, and so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind. And that's it. So I'm gonna keep this tutorial short and sweet, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.